Hey guys, today we're going to be learning how to scan our negatives that we shot for the darkroom so we can edit them digitally, print them larger, just kind of manipulate them however we choose to. So the first things that we're going to need to do is go over how to set up your scanner. The top of your scanner, if you open it up, you'll see that there's a white, it almost looks like paper, and then it's connected to a holder. You're going to go ahead and take that out. We don't need that since we're going to need the glass that's behind it. The next thing you're going to do is put your negatives in a negative holder. The negative holder should be at the teacher's desk. When you're putting your negatives in, make sure that you are not touching your negatives on the top or the bottom. You're grabbing it by the side, only because your fingerprints will show up on the scan. You're also going to want to dust your negatives with a microfiber cloth. Your teacher should have this as well. The dust and the fingerprints will show up, and this will just help reduce the amount of editing you have later on. So after you have that in, you'll see that your negative holder has an A on the left-hand side. Match that with the A that you find on the left-hand side of the scanner, because this will put your negatives right in the middle of the scanning bed. Then you're going to open up your Epson Scan software. Instead of being in full auto mode, we're going to go into professional mode. And this is where we can really choose the different kind of settings that we need. So document type, we want to make sure we're on film and not reflective. And then the film type is whatever you shot. So if you have color negatives, black and white negatives, and then positive film is slide film. So you most likely have black and white if you shot for class. Your image type, keep it at 24-bit color. Your resolution depends on what or how big you want your images to be. So typically we work in 300, but a lot of times people will scan at like 1200 DPI because then they get a much larger image and then they can shrink it down but still maintain the quality. For this demo, I'm just going to keep it at 300. Then we're going to hit preview. And what this is doing is giving us an overall preview of what our negatives look like on the scanning bed. This can take a little while, so while this is working, just make sure you're not clicking around on anything else, like no Photoshop or Illustrator or anything like that, just because it can affect your scans. Okay, so in this view, we're in thumbnail right now. The scanner automatically chooses what it thinks the negatives are, so where the cuts are on them. This is great if you're going to be using for a contact sheet. But if we want to go and actually scan all these, the way I prefer to do it is hitting normal, and then you choose the binding box for it. So let's say I want to scan this bottom negative. We're just going to click and drag, and notice how I'm getting more than I need. This will come into play later. So click and drag, and you're going to go to zoom. Again, this will take a little while, but in the end, we'll be able to see a much larger image of that negative. Perfect. It's not exactly straight right now, so once it's done, going to rotate it. And then I can take this binding box and I'm going to shrink it down so it's just on top of my image, no black or white around it. And I can go to my histogram under adjustments on this left-hand window. And I can manipulate my settings to get that scan looking exactly how I want it. So the way I usually do it is I pull my blacks out just so it's at the edge of my histogram. I'll pull my whites out so it's at the edge, and I'll adjust my grays to how I want it to look. So that's looking, we're going to adjust these out too. So I like to scan in terms of flat, so a little more gray, and then I add contrast later. So something right about that looks good for me. And now I'll hit close. I'll bring my binding box out more than I need again. And then under target size, so click this little arrow, we don't want it to be the original. We want to make it bigger than the target size, or else it's going to scan 1.5 inches by 1.5 0.02 inches. So I don't know, we're going to do, well, I'm going to lock it so it keeps the dimensions proportionate. So, whoop, why are you not working? I'm going to unlock it. Sorry about that. And then let's say my width I want 10 inches. If I click that, it automatically changes my height. It automatically changes my scale. And now I'm just going to hit scan. I'm going to put it on my desktop. You should choose your folder that you want to put it in. I'm going to name it demo, and then start it at 1. For your scans, I do them as TIFFs just because it's a much larger file format and it's not compressed like a JPEG. And then go ahead and hit OK. And this is where the scan will start taking place. Depending on how big you're scanning, it will take up a lot of time. So make sure that you have time before the bell. You don't want to have your computer start to shut down, or you have to shut down during the scanning process. So this scan looks like it's going to take about, well, it says 3 minutes. It'll jump, so less than a minute now. Okay, so now I have my image right here on my desktop, top right hand side of your screen. And I can open this in Photoshop, Lightroom, whatever have you. And then to do the next one, I'm just going to hit full. You can just drag this little one over, and you can continue to repeat that process over and over until you're done. So that's about it for scanning. Have fun, guys.